I have noticed some interesting phenomena with some of the people that I talk to once in a while. Um, that it seems as if they start their morning by sort of gathering uh, certain emotions that they have, and they're having them for whatever reasons, and they just load them uh, into this magazine, and they put it on a machine gun, and then they start their day by looking for an opportunity to just unload the whole magazine on somebody. And it doesn't seem that with these people they're really looking for honest conversations, because all they're doing is when they engage with somebody in a conversation is they're on the lookout for these keywords or triggers, uh, and this is the excuse they need to suddenly unleash this. I call it a sequence of emotions that are somehow connected in their heads, and you're on the other side and you're like, what the hell just happened? I said one thing and this guy went onto this rant that actually is not connected at all to what I just said. And the reason people do this is because pretty much all of us are dealing with some kind of a neurosis. And I know this word carries a heavy emotion with it, but we all are dealing with some form of neurosis. With some people it's more severe, or they're just not able to hide it as well as the rest of us, or they have a way of expressing it which is very distasteful to society. And that's why they are the examples that we are thinking of first when we hear that the word. And so an individual like this needs to reach that balance, to kind of balance the equation, to borrow a mathematical term. And but you might say, well, why don't they just do it? Well, I guess it's part of the theatrics, or maybe they have a guilty conscience that out of the blue they just walk into the office and they start with this, emotional machine gun. And maybe because it's not accepted socially and they're not willing to pay the price, because we know crazy people that are willing to pay the price and they just unload on whoever it is around them. So for whatever reasons they need this trigger, and as we become more and more in love with the idea that as a society we become more civil and polite, we are going to see these people looking for more subtlety in unloading this emotional load on people. And but at the bottom of all, the point is that they're not really looking for a genuine conversation, and this is why you can end up talking to an individual like that for years and then eventually realize that he hasn't really listened to anything you were saying besides those keywords, those hints that he needs, these justifications that he's looking for in order to sort of unload his story on you. And you may not be even relevant in that case. You might be you're just the thing that, it's like the speaker who triggers certain thing about the individual and he just starts going crazy on you. So I'm saying is not necessarily personal. So what do you do in this case? My advice is don't waste your time with this kind of relationships or friendships or whatever it is, because it don't really exist as someone who they really care what what you think or what you have to say and so on. You're just a tool for balancing their own neurosis. And of course, we got to look at ourselves as well, that we most likely are doing the same thing, just not to the extent that I'm describing here. I remember one time, actually this was the first time when I encountered this behavior, and I noticed it in a way that kind of triggered me paying attention in the future for, looking for people like that in the future. And it was a friend of mine, and one day he said, listen, my dad is coming overseas. He's just flying very quickly for 24 hours before he flies to Asia. And he said, do you want to come over? We're going to have a dinner. You can meet him. And I've heard a lot of things about his dad. And I said, sure, okay. So we went, and very interesting guy. I learned a lot about the industry that he was in, interesting stories. But I noticed that he didn't care about anything that was said on this table unless he said it. Like, he would notice that there is a part of the conversation that actually you have additional information, and you would sort of say it, and then he'll kind of look at you, wait for you to finish, and then he'll continue what he was saying as if he didn't say anything. And I found this strange, but at the end of the dinner, after he left, I turned to my friend and I said, we were in a car, I said, how is your relationship with your dad? And he says, fine. Why? And I said, well, he hasn't seen you for over 6 months, and he didn't have even one question about your life. How is dating, how is career, none of that. And he just brushed it aside. I said, oh, that's how he is. Well, that's not normal. And I know that this story is sort of in the extreme section of what I was describing earlier. But some of you will probably recognize some of your relatives or co-workers doing exactly that. So they are not really interested in having a communication with anybody. It's more of they just have to say their story. And this is a little bit different from what I was describing earlier, because the case of my friend's dad, the only trigger he needs is he sees listeners and he starts. So I guess he's a guy who doesn't even have the guilty conscience of what he's doing, which I think these people are even more dangerous. So yeah, be on the lookout for this stuff, and like I said, don't waste your time with people like that. You're not going to extract any real social value. Sure, if, like in the case of my friend's dad, you can learn some information about another country and business and so on, but commit to this individual in a non-social way, as if you're reading a report or a book.